I'm filming this intro after the rest of this video, if that makes any sense. The original, concept for this video was different, and then I read through a lot of my YouTube comments as well as just clocked in some more time and realized that I wanted to pivot this into sort of a different video. I think this intro will make more sense later. As you'll see, I kind of started this video off as a part 2 to the first part of this video, which I posted last week, I think, trying to calculate or determine if this fingerboard rail business side thing is profitable. During the video, we sort of came to some realizations of just like me going about it and the thought process behind it and everything about it completely 100% wrong. So I wanted to preface this video with that because you'll kind of see that the intro starts off different. So here's the original intro for this video. We'll jump into it. Today is the day that, for better or for worse, we get to figure out if my little business idea is something that's gonna work and be sustainable and profitable, or if it's kind of gonna crash and burn before we ever get started. I don't want to go into the full backstory and explanation again, because I guess this is kind of like a part 2. I'll have part 1 linked down below where we got started on all this, and that kind of goes more in depth on the goals and what I'm trying to accomplish here. For the sake of time though, and just jumping right on into things, I won't go into the why, we're just gonna go into the doing it. This is where we left off in part 1. We have a whole bunch of these fingerboard rails cut out from the CNC plasma cutter and then cleaned with the chisel and the angle grinder. I think we were about, actually I have a picture of it. 3 hours and 16 minutes of labor to get there in the first video or the first part, and then I clocked another 2.5 just experimenting with some stuff. And then, we still have the whole breakdown here, so we're at what, $2.70 or 80 cents in materials per rail, and the goal here is trying to calculate, hourly rate, if it's sustainable, if I can grow this and scale it up. A whole lot of number crunching, which is hard for someone that's not very good at crunching numbers. Part 2, we're gonna try to finish these all up and get them looking like this. This is the finished product that I'm very happy with. The color can change, obviously, but we gotta cut out a whole bunch of these little feet and clean them up just like we did the rails, and then get those welded on. And this is sort of going to be the make or break, because I have to go through and count the rails. I think we have over 40 rails, which means we need over 80 feet, and each foot needs to be prepped and cleaned before welding, and then they all have to be welded on. Oh man, so after part 1, I focused a lot on time optimization, and I went through a bunch of different tools and grinding methods and grinding wheels to try to speed up the cleanup process. Getting these feet done and welded on is kind of going to be the make or break if this is A, sustainable, and B, scalable, because I learned that those are 2 different things. Okay, let's get started. We are starting our work timer here, because again, I want to go through and get like how many actual hours I'm spending working on these. What happened? Oh, I unplugged it from my OSHA approved electrician skills there. I was gonna finally screw that on, but then I didn't. We'll save it for another day. It's fine. That's why we have fire extinguishers. So yeah, you guys know the drill by now. It's just getting everything prepped, air compressor filled up, plasma table filled up, everything turned on and ready to go, and then start working. I'm not gonna forget to plug the table this time before filling it up. We have our little drain plugs there, and another one over there. Turn that on. Oh, look at this too. We gotta replace our beads. You see in there how those are blue? That's what color these start out as. Now they're very not blue, and this is the air filter that I keep mentioning, how it sucks the moisture out of the air before it goes into the plasma cutter. When the beads are pink, that means that they have absorbed all the water and it's time to put new ones in. And that's also like all of these numbers and calculations that I'm working with, these are like rough, because I'm not calculating the cost of like the grinding discs that I'm going through, the beads, the consumables for the plasma cutter, all that stuff. I just want like rough numbers for now. While that is filling up, we might as well get our material ready, because we use a different thickness of steel for the legs than we do for the actual rail. the infamous cow. The cow lives on forever. This right here, as you can see from the previous cutouts, this is 12 gauge, which is what I make the feet out of. It cuts faster, it's cheaper, and there's less cleanup involved. Plus, it looks better too on the rails. It looks weird with thicker feet on it. So we'll get that in place. I'll show you guys this again just for reference of what we're going for. You can see the rail rail itself is cut out of 1/4 inch thick steel, and the feet are out of 12 gauge. I actually experimented with making the feet the same thickness as the rail. It looked really wrong for some reason. Like aesthetically, this looks better. And it's cheaper, easier, and quicker, so it all works out. One of the important lessons I've learned about not wasting material and time is to do test cuts first. So instead of just cutting 80 of them and hoping everything's right, we're gonna cut one just to make sure. But first, nice, we're protected. So again, we're just gonna run this one really quick, just to make sure all the settings right, it fits, all that. Because the last thing we want to do is to cut 80 of them and find out that the settings weren't right. So we are going to take this piece and make sure it fits. All right, so we stick it in, and sure enough, it fits. It all looks good. Settings seem chill. So let's cut a bunch of them. We have 13 rows and 7 columns for a total of 91 feet. That gives us some like wiggle room in case we lose some or have some mistakes or whatever. Everything's set up. We have all new consumables in the tip of the plasma cutter. We have the new beads in the air filter. These cuts should be good. That's a knock on wood moment if I've ever heard one. So I'm gonna time lapse this and see how they come out. So unfortunately, we really didn't make it that far. I think we were cutting for about 5 minutes before we just got a weird glitch. Like it half cut one of them and then threw an error code at me. So I spent, a little bit of time troubleshooting it, and then eventually I just stopped the camera to troubleshoot it off camera. Okay, that was a bummer. I just stopped the timer so I can stop to explain this. I don't even know what happened. It's just a glitch, an issue. The limit switches on the machine for some reason started triggering when they were nowhere near them, so I had to go through and redo a bunch of stuff, and that took 45 minutes. We lost one. It cut the hole, but not the outside, so I'm gonna go through. I made a couple changes, not to the actual shape, just to the cut, doesn't matter. We have 77 this time. I got 10 of them, I believe. We got 10 safe ones. Weird glitch that we just had, but I'm gonna start the timer. That just took a chunk out of our time, but I mean, that's what we're calculating. Stuff like that's gonna happen. All right, let's resume. Thankfully, everything went smooth this time, and I wanted to address this too. I've been seeing a ton of comments. It's a great idea, by the way. A ton of comments of people telling me to just use the cutouts from the rails themselves, like the little oval cutouts, as the feet. So I just have to reprogram them to cut out the little square beforehand. And while it's a really good idea in theory, to me at least, it's not worth it. I think that, it might not even save money because you still have to cut those squares in the 1/4 inch, which would go through the consumables faster. But it might be relatively even. It comes out to what, 18 cents in 12 gauge steel for the feet. So it's not cutting into my profits a ton. And I think the biggest factor for me is that I don't like how the 1/4 inch feet looks. If you're fingerboarding, you can't ride over it. Like with the 12 gauge, your wheels can roll over it if you need to. But yeah, I just wanted to address that. It's a great idea. I just don't think I'm gonna go that route. But appreciate the suggestions. Okay, we got them all cut out. During that whole cutting time, I was actually going through the comments on part 1, and you guys are so helpful. I really do mean that, and I want to go more into depth on that later in this video. Something that got suggested multiple times was a sort of rock tumbler to help with the cleanup process, but I don't have one of those yet. So, and obviously a rock tumbler would work a million times better than this because it takes time. But I thought for like a very quick kind of interim clean, God, that's loud. We just hit them with that to get some of that super loose dross off and then help them. Yeah, see, look at that. Already, I mean, like I still got to go through with a grinder on the backs of some of them, but maybe a rock tumbler is the way to do it. This was definitely a good start just to hopefully break some of that loose dross off. Here are all of the feet that we have. That's crazy looking. And you can see on the bottoms, they still have that little nugget. It's called dross, kind of the leftover metal from cutting it. And that's been the biggest downfall of this business so far. In part one, I was losing a lot of hope. The amount of work of just chiseling over and over to get that dross off was just not practical. This little wire wheel cup, for some reason, works so... I went through a whole bunch of stuff. I tried this sort of wire wheel. This didn't work at all. I tried this sort of like braided wire wheel, and this worked, but really not that good. I don't know what it is about that cup wire wheel, but this one works really, really good for flinging that dross off. Again, I'm realizing this video is kind of going to be a lot of time lapses because it's a lot of like repetitive work. This is all, it has to happen, you know what I mean? So I'm going to set you guys up. I'm going to get to grinding, and I'll see you guys after that. Thanks to that handy little wire brush cup wheel thing. I don't even know what it's called. For some reason, that it worked so much better than the belt sander, than the angle grinder, than flap discs. Like, it just, that cup thing has been a lifesaver for this. So we're able to knock out all the prep for these feet relatively quickly and get everything weld ready. I have no idea when. I finished grinding everything down. I looked up at the camera and it had just turned off. I guess my SD card filled up without me knowing. So I don't know what you guys saw, but we got everything done. We have the feet all cleaned up and ground down. We have the rails all ready to go. We are at, I paused the timer obviously, 2 hours, 6 minutes, 44 seconds. Not bad. We are multiple hours ahead of schedule. I estimated that taking like 3 or 4 hours, I think. Remember in the intro to this video, I sort of mentioned that I realized I was going about this whole thing wrong and the video idea sort of pivoted. That's where this comes in. Before we get into welding, and I might jinx it here because maybe welding takes 15 out. No, there's no way. I think, you know, let's sit down for this conversation. I think I need to admit when I'm wrong. Well, I know I need to admit when I'm wrong. It's a very important trait in all people, I think. You'll notice that in most of my videos, whether it's fabrication or skateboarding or whatever, I'll ask for your guys' feedback or input, and I think you do know how much of that I actually take into consideration. Like when I ask you for advice, or I ask you how I think I should do something, I will find a comment that is smarter than I am and I will follow it. I love that. That's why I love documenting stuff like this. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to be super open and transparent about the financial side of this business, which again, a lot of people advised me not to do. Aside from the handful of just obviously ignorant comments. Clearly, mommy and daddy bought you everything you have. Look at where you live. You don't need to sell these for profit. You're already rich. No, I'm rich in happiness, and I'm able to live the life that I live, which I do consider rich. Financially rich, definitely not, but that's not my goal in life anymore. It used to be 100%. I used to think that was like success is having hundreds of thousands of dollars in millions of dollars was the goal, obviously. But no, I've learned over the years that happiness is much more valuable than wealth. That being said, like, financial comfort is very important. I don't want to take away from like people or families that are struggling. Like, oh, money's not important. It for sure is. Anyway, way off topic there. Where I was going with that was I saw a couple comments that just kind of put me in my place, that I needed. I pinned this comment. This one really stuck with me because my whole thing was I estimated, and I'm right on track now, maybe like an hour or two ahead, that for a batch of around 30 rails, it'll take me 9 to 10 hours. Minus expenses, and to be fair, this isn't including the expenses I was talking about earlier, like consumables, electricity, that's a big one, honestly. Flap discs, grinder wheels, like all of that stuff, which does add up. Just accounting for material. If I were to sell 30 rails at $40, which is on the steeper side, I think I'd profit around $800 to $900 for 10 hours of work. The logical side of me, and I don't want this to go like unnoticed, no shit that $800 to $900 for 8 to 9 hours of work, that's $100 an hour. That is unreal. I'm aware of that, and I think where I was just getting so sucked into my head was like, well, I can't work 10 hours a day to make this a full-time thing because I'm already working 8 hours a day on my social media business and filming and editing. And like, I got overwhelmed. I pinned this comment, and again, this wasn't the only person saying this. It was one of the more frequently commented things. To me, it doesn't seem like you want this to be a full-time job, right? Just a little extra income. Spread out those 10 hours through all week, put 2 hours in a day, Monday through Friday, then you get $1,000 extra a week. And again, real world, after full expenses and everything, that's $500 to $600, which don't get me wrong, $500 to $600 for 10 hours of work, sign me up. If you did 10 hours a week for the month, in theory, that's $3,500 to $4,000 extra income a month. Again, that's on the very high end because we didn't put into account count expenses. I apologize, but I don't understand what the disconnect is. 10 hours a week seems manageable and worth it. Am I missing something? And I responded and essentially said, like, no, you're not missing anything at all. You hit the nail on the head. I'm the one overcomplicating it and overthinking it. I think in my head, I just went to like, all in, this is my full-time job now. I need to clock in 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I can't do that with my current workload on my social media job. That's not the goal. This isn't a full-time thing. I think that the second I make it a full-time, well, A, there's just not a big enough market for me to make it a full-time thing. But B, I also don't want to make it a full-time thing. It started as a pastime hobby, and I want it to stay as that and just kind of help pay for itself. If I'm able to make over $1,000 a month with it'd be 40 hours a month. Yeah, if I can put in 40 hours a month and okay, the goal would be $2,000 a month for 40 hours of work a month. If I could do that after expenses, I'm psyched on that. Like that would help me. So I kind of just wanted to like address that I think I went about the first video wrong, where I think I went into it sort of balls deep. This is my full-time job, but how I can't make this sustainable. I think that right there was my problem. It's not my full-time job. It shouldn't be, and I don't need to scale it up as much as I thought I needed to. If I can do I think we have 46 rails or something, and if I can and I think that the biggest takeaway, I just can't do it all in one day, because days like this where I'm going to be dedicating all day, and same with part 1, that takes away from very important things I have to do for my main source of income, which is YouTube, and everything that goes hand in hand with that, other platforms and whatnot. But like that comment just spelled it out for me. It's like, you don't do 10 hours a day, you do 2 hours a day for the week, and that's manageable. I don't know. I think I wanted to say it's a weight off of my shoulders, because I thought I was just I was a failure, but I thought the business model just wasn't going to work. I think the labor that goes into it is fine, sustainable, obviously. I think selling them, I still got to figure out the price point, but somewhere $40-50 for all, they come with a handwritten sign note, all that, like very personalized. I think it'll work. I think it'll be profitable enough to keep it going and to continue. And that this is all paired on top of YouTube ad revenue. I'm lumping the fingerboard sales into, the building the rails, because like all the real rails I spend more than I make on the YouTube videos. So kind of lumping it all into one thing and just treating myself as the business. And I need to run at a profit. I can run some things at a loss, which is fine as long as overall I'm running at a profit. And I think these numbers are making sense. A lot of this is probably pointless jibber jabber to a lot of you guys. Like you don't care. That's fine. I totally understand that. It's a lot. Kind of a different approach to things, getting this deep into it and, talking about the price and like my estimated income. I don't know. I think the reason a lot of people don't do it, and I think financial education is very, very, very important. I wish I had a better financial education. I also think like breaking the stigma about talking about money is important too. I also think that money is the root of all evil, so there's like right and wrong ways to do all this. I've gotten so sidetracked and off topic from what the original point of this conversation was that I don't even know what the point of the conversation was. Long story short, the numbers are making sense. I'm feeling good about this. I don't need to make it this huge scale mass production thing that I think I had in my head. It's just a small scale like handmade fingerboard obstacle side business. As simple as that. I think we're all good. So the last step here is just to get all of these feet welded on, which I mean it will take a couple hours for sure. Set you guys up for one last time lapse, and I think we're chilling. I found out the hard way that you can get sunburned from welding. The last time I welded a big batch of rails, I woke up the next morning and I was like toasted, bro. So I'm sleeving up, making sure that I don't have to deal with that again. I didn't know that was a thing, but I sure found out. So originally the plan was to fully finish all 40 rails or however many it was. But again, there's no point in just like overextending myself and overworking for no reason. And I kind of quickly was running into the issue that they needed more prep. Not more prep than I thought, because I knew they needed prep, but I figured there was a better way to do the prep work needed. I had started out by using just hand sandpaper, then like a wire brush, and then steel wool, and then I whipped out the belt sander to try to get, because like if the metal has mill scale on it, I think that's what it's called, the metal can't be dirty for TIG welding, so you have to clean it and grind it down essentially. And it's like, sure, I could spend the 2 hours in prep work it would take grinding every piece down, but I'm pretty sure there's an easier way, like a solution you can let them sit in or something. So I think I made 10 rails in this time, like finished 10 rails in this time lapse, and then just kind of called it for there because I wanted to see what you guys say in the comments. I think I talk about it at the end of this video, so we'll end the time lapse and the voiceover here. Okay, things are going good. Slight change of plans though. We got 10 rails done, and by done, I do still want to go over the bottoms with angle grinder just to make sure everything sits level with no wobble or anything. But we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got 10 done. Took about an hour, which isn't terrible. But I did notice, I don't know if you guys saw in the time lapse, I whipped out the belt sander because I do still have to go over these to get all the, what's it called? Like mill scale off. I think there's a solution that I can put them in, whether it's like acetone or vinegar, or there's something that I can just douse everything in that'll make them weld ready. And that would save 45 minutes of those 60 minutes spent on that. So definitely still got a lot of rails left, but I'm feeling much more sort of reassured, if that makes any sense. If anyone's got any tips or advice on how to get that mill, like I think it's called mill scale. Could be wrong though. Just because I'm sanding them down because TIG welding has to be, like, the material has to be super clean. I think it's vinegar. There's something that I can just let them soak in, then rinse them off. I'm gonna do my research before I just waste unnecessary hours finishing all those up, but this was a great part 2. I think we learned a ton in part 1, and that is literally thanks to you guys. I don't want to call it tough love because you guys are just like speaking facts, but sometimes I need that, like a third person perspective. It just helps me out. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. I hope this was somewhat entertaining. I don't know, bro. This was sort of more like me, like the gears in my head were turning, so this was very productive in that sense. Less productive. No, we got 10 rails done. It was productive. Part 3, don't worry, not all of these will be such a long and drawn out series. This just a lot of like figuring out in this one. Part 3, we should be able to finish those all up, and I'd like to get, yeah, we can for sure get them done and on the website. And my first, well, I guess I can't say first. I've sold like 500 fingerboard rails over the past 4 years, but I haven't like taken it seriously and like calculated profit and loss and all that. So if these all sell, I think this will be my first batch running at a profit. I think. The CNC plasma table is still not like recouped yet, but you know what we're learning, all right? Love you guys, dude. Thank you for everything. Appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you next video. Peace out.